Myself, I'm John Holko, president of Lenape Energy. We're a group of resource companies. We were actually started probably 30-some years ago in the mid-70s to develop natural gas for utilities on the East Coast, which is interesting because now natural gas has become one of the primary focuses in the area. I have my background in petroleum engineering. I'm a graduate of Penn State University. So I have a Bachelor of Science degree and probably do more business development and business now outside of talking and trying to present some facts about the industry. It's great to be here. I'd like to thank Congressman Reed and Mark Fritz especially for starting this Marcellus Shale caucus. I mean, the whole concept of some people in Washington actually taking a focused look at how it impacts this area is a great thing, because having been in this business in New York and Pennsylvania for 30-plus years, I've sort of seen it all. From the start of the shale development right here at St. Bonaventure, where we were doing Marcellus Shale wells back in 1980, and Houghton College, some of the other wells that were developed under the DOE NYSERDA money, to where we are today, and actually making an economic go of all the shale plays in the U.S. And that sort of brings us to where we are today in this meeting, because what I've seen in our industry is I've seen a growth in sort of the type of jobs, the opportunities available. We've gone, when I graduated from Penn State in 1980, sort of the focus was engineers. A little bit of any engineer, from electrical engineers to civil engineers to petroleum engineers, mechanical engineers. They were being hired by the service companies as well as the oil and gas operators. And then what ended up happening, you were placed into a development program, an engineering training program, and they provided specific training. A lot of the companies still do that, but now they're relying on outside sources to provide some of that technology. There comes the BOCES and the community colleges, because now there's a major role for specific education. There's a lot of ancillary services in our business that supply engineering services and technology and review and on-site. I mean, the business has grown to the point where we have on-site security firms now. So we actually, you can get a job working for an oil and gas company being a security guard at a well site. I mean, that wasn't heard of when you had, this small oil well in the Allegheny National Forest or something over here around Wellsville. But now, the development of the shale plays has come about that, this is it. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but it is an industrial practice. It's a development of a resource that's much more associated with a manufacturing process. When we were, looking for conventional plays, it was a little bit more of a hit or miss development. You look for gas here, oil there, and now with the shale plays, it's pretty much, the shale's there. It's drilling the wells, developing it, and producing it. So it provides for this. We've got a variation in education from people with just high school diplomas who can work in the labor force or the admin force, through the certificate programs at the local colleges and community colleges, providing a specific education that can move up in a company, to guys that are, doctorates and geophysicists. All of these guys basically occupy that oil and gas space. So you have, just looking at what's going on in the industry, you have job growth in every manner. And that to me is the amazing thing. It's not just, we're not a manufacturer that's just hiring guys that can operate one piece of machinery. I mean, you got guys that are getting hired as truck drivers. You got guys that are getting hired as rouseabout laborers, just turning wrenches. You've got people in the ancillary businesses. You've got people that are making sandwiches at food carts. So the opportunity for work is just tremendous. And over the last probably 5 years, if you look at what happened in this country, and I think the congressman's noted this, is the energy business has sort of kept a lot of the employment alive. I think if we hadn't had these unconventional shale developments, we would have had a much more dramatic decrease in employment. I mean, a really dramatic decrease. And the other nice thing about this business is a lot of the money, the majority of the money, stays local. I mean, from the perspective of the employment and trying to develop the workforce locally, to the money that actually comes out of the wells and pays as royalties and everything else. Because all those things end up creating that snowball that creates the other jobs that support the whole infrastructure. And it's come to an area of what I say in Pennsylvania and New York. I grew up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which was steel mills and coal mines. And if you know anything about Johnstown, if I mention the word Johnstown, everybody thinks of floods. So, but it was a big, we have Bethlehem Steel and U.S. Steel and Glidden Metals. There's a lot of steel manufacturing. And when the flood hit in '77, they sort of didn't return. There was no reason to come back to that area. Even though they had capital exposed in new facilities, they basically walked away. And Johnstown sort of took a turn for the worse. But what I see in this entire area of Pennsylvania and the southern tier in New York is I see some industrial background, some people and the work ethic that's needed to develop what we have today in the energy business. Because this isn't an easy job, okay? And I don't, my belief is it's nothing that's just going to be developed over a couple of years. This is a long-term generational change. I think it's going to provide a great opportunity for us to, develop the infrastructure we need to sort of transition where we're going in the energy environment. You're not going to hear me say that natural gas is the be-all, end-all. I think I'm a guy that says you need a little bit of everything. But what I'm seeing in our business, the capital that's there, that's able to support it, support the jobs, is also going to be the same money that's going to move us to the next energy, whatever that is. And those jobs that are going to be developed for the natural gas industry, the unconventional shale plays, will be the same type structure you're going to see in everything else going forward.
John, maybe to start off some conversation, and I know we have a question and answer section after everyone speaks, but maybe just, I like to keep things informal. I'd like to get information out there as much as possible. So can you touch upon, we're talking here about Marcellus Shale, and the Marcellus Shale caucus is focused particularly on Marcellus Shale. But could you talk about the size of the impact on workloads, workforce, related to the entire shales across America? Because one thing that I think people lose in the mix when we talk about this here locally is that this is occurring not only here in Marcellus, this is occurring across the country. And those labor demands, because some people have expressed to me some concerns about, well, you'll just move labor from different areas and import the jobs. And are you seeing that? But my understanding is different.
No, I think what you see in the development of the resource initially is there's some expertise needed to get it started. It's sort of that tinder that gets the fire going. So you see some of the importation of some of the technical jobs, and then what's relied upon is the development of the workforce and everything to do the development, to build everything out. This, it's not just Pennsylvania and New York and Ohio and West Virginia. We're looking at Tennessee and Kentucky and Indiana. The shale development, the unconventional shale is pretty much, it's blossomed everywhere. You've got North Dakota and Colorado and Texas and Oklahoma. They're looking at it in California now. Canada has huge shale plays. And if you look at international, it's one of the largest opportunities from an international perspective to change the global economics of energy. You have countries like Poland who may have the opportunity to supply their own energy. I mean, that's unheard of. You could have the Russians that don't want that to happen because, they've got this little workforce that they can keep under control. But if Poland starts to develop its own energy supply, and it like the U.S., we rely on a lot of foreign countries for our oil, for our crude oil. With the development of natural gas, if Poland can get off of Russia, you have there's a huge growth in technical opportunity and job opportunity in the foreign countries, which sort of, it's that rising of the whole boat. And like the Congressman said, it's not the start of any play in the energy business is it's more risk intensive at the start. So the companies are hesitant to sort of do the build out until they're comfortable with the economics. So what you have is, let's say a new shale play was going to start in a year in Tennessee. There's not a lot of shale drilling in Tennessee right now, but there's shales down there that can be developed. If the development starts there, initially what you'll see is you may see some of the technical expertise guys from New York or Pennsylvania who have been doing it for a few years now. They'll go down there just to get it started. Then what they'll do is probably they'll come back as the workforce is developed in Tennessee. So it truly is it's a huge national opportunity as well as an international opportunity.